Hey, what's up, guys? Node Investor here. Finally made it. I'm on. Let me see here. I'm trying to get the windows set up here, and we'll get going here in a minute. Thank you guys for joining. Looks like we've got quite a few here with us today, so we've got more coming in. So let's let everybody catch up here. Let the stream start going through. I'm seeing some folks on the chat box here, so hopefully you can see the window there. There's a question, what microphone do I use? I use two of them. I have one at home, one here, the Yeti, and then the um, like the just a cheaper version of one, the Snowball. Hopefully it comes across okay. It's decent enough. It's usually not the highest end mics, but maybe I'll upgrade here. So what I want to cover today are some of my thoughts on the trend, right? Just kind of general philosophy, my strategy here, what I'm thinking, and look at some pluses, some minuses, right, on some of these trades. But the short of it is, it's choppy. It's a choppy market, and in this environment, it's better to just either ride it out or wait it out, because if you back and forth, that ends up costing more in the long run. So either you're out completely watching, or you're incompletely and just writing it out, or you're basically like how I'm right now and partially out and just gonna let it sit for a little bit. And I'm looking at the alts, seeing if there's any setups there, and there's a few. There's some strong patterns. Let me see, I got an echo here. Is anybody else hearing the echo? Just let me know, guys. I'll be monitoring the chats on Slack as well as here on the chat box. So but it's a mixed market, right? It's okay, thank you. It's gone now. Some strong names, some attempted breakouts that I was watching, and some other ones that are just not as strong, right? In the market, that's just the way it is right now. It's very choppy. It's very selective, right? It's not across the board. We're not seeing this massive alt rally yet, or even Bitcoin, right? So two things to consider here, right? This thing can play out in a number of ways. So here's what I want to show you guys. Let's zoom out first. Let's start high level. I'm going to go to Bitstamp here. I'm going to talk daily chart. And so let me clear my thoughts here, and I'll redo that again. So clearly there's this lower high pattern going. So when you look at the daily chart, there's no doubt about it, right? The general trend since it's topped has been down. I mean, that's just the reality, right? Overall, BTC has been down, but you've had these big counter trend rallies, and even when it goes sideways like it was doing here and here, I mean, just massive alt rallies during those time periods. And even in this little bit of a pause we saw over the weekend and last week, right, provided some nice little decent trades. EOS and Walton and Link, and just a couple of very quick trades during this little bit of a pop. So there's always going to be trading opportunities, right? So I know from a HODL perspective, right, the long term, yeah, you don't want to see this. And eventually we're going to bottom out and base, and kind of my thoughts are we're going to go sideways, right? There's a lot of people thinking, oh, we'll be back at new highs in February and March, or I'm not so sure we're going to see it that soon. Will we be at new highs eventually? Yeah, absolutely. I think we're going to eventually bottom out here and resume the bull trend. Where that bottom is anybody's guess. But until then, it's making for some good trading, making for some tough trading too, right? Because we're fighting the trend, right? Trading is a lot easier when you're in an up mode and the wind is at your back, as they say. So it's that old adage, the trend is your friend, and a little bit of a cliche, but it still holds true in terms of momentum on your side. So this is the daily. Now let's go to the 4-hour, right? And you can see it on the daily too. This potential pattern is showing up. And so what I'm looking at here is the potential for this double bottom to be forming. Now, this really needs to start going up the right side here soon, or it's not going to be that pattern that I'm looking for. But it's very much an equilibrium pattern right now with, you got that low, you get the high, and you got a higher low. Maybe we start forming that sort of symmetrical pattern where we come up and make a lower high. That's the potential here. But what I'd rather see, and I don't know, we don't always get what we want on these markets, but what I'd rather see is the potential for a type of double bottom that is called the Adam and Eve double bottom. And so this is, there's double bottoms, and then there's all kinds of specific double bottoms. And so the Adam and Eve, or the Eve Adam, there's different variants of it, and you can see it on the top, the different variants of it. But basically it's defined by, you get the first spike low and it's very narrow, very sharp. It could even be one long wick. And then you get the second low that tends to be a little bit more rounded out, right? And so that's how that pattern is set up. And we're kind of forming that potentially, right? Again, if we start to work our way up the right side here, that's going to really start to confirm it. So I was trying to find a good picture, a good example of some of those. This is probably the better one I found. But you can see, the first low is a spike. The second low is kind of more of a rounded bottom type of pattern, and they show up in different variants, right? So here's on the tops. You can see, Adams is your more traditional double top, double bottom, or spike, spike. You hear this rounded and then a spike, and you can flip these around and basically have the bottom version of these, and that's what I'm looking at, right? So an Adam Eve double bottom is kind of what I'm seeing play out here a little bit. You get the big spike, the volume, you get the lower spike, smaller volume. And I'm also seeing some good bull volume starting to come in here on these. Now it's very choppy, right? This is the 4-hour chart. So when you look, closer, it's spike down, spike up, spike down, spike up, and it's a little choppy here. But if you kind of just sit back, and it helps sometimes to look at a candle chart or a bar chart, excuse me, and you can kind of see the pattern a little bit more clearly when you do those type of things. And so that's what I'm looking at. Now the neckline is still the same, right? Where it's that big resistance point that we broke down from, right around that high 12K mark. We came all the way down. We basically rallied. This rallied, created a little bit of a wedge that broke, and here we are testing the lows. And so I'd like to see this second low start to round out. It looks like it's trying. It really does, but it's still choppy. So that's what I'm looking at right now. That's kind of my top pattern that I'm seeing here form. And if you go to the daily chart, you can see there's a case to be made for, hey, this thing is trying to put in a little bit of a double bottom on this daily chart. Let me go to I haven't looked at the line chart. Yeah, you can see the line chart a little bit. Shows it a little bit more. But, there's a case to be made that the momentum is at least slowing down to the downside. It's trying to get back, right? Trying to change. Now, the test is going to be if we can rally back up to this pivot point here, basically around that 12.8, 12.9 area. And we'll see if we can put a little handle right below that and then break through if we can rally. Now, that's, obviously a ways away. We got to get there first. We got to start seeing some upside confirmation. But that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for that right now. I'm not ready to go 100% yet because the downtrend is still clearly not broken, even in the very near term, right? You can see we're still making this series of lower highs here on this daily chart. We're still below the 10 EMA on the daily chart. So there's still no upside confirmation. So let me be clear on that. But I'm starting to feel a little bit more comfortable with the low that this is trying to put in, right? And you can see that if you look at the trends, the general trends, this is on the, let me go to the 1 hour. It'll make it even easier. I mean, you can see that, here we go, right? So initially, right, you get this downtrend, eventually that breaks, and we got this new uptrend that went through the weekend, then that changed, then we started a new downtrend, and it just feels like that downtrend is starting to break now, and here we are forming potentially another uptrend, right? So that's kind of what I'm looking at, and if we see this new uptrend starting to take hold and bump up the right side, then that'll give me more validation for that double bottom type of pattern that I'm looking for here. Now, in the very near term, right, you can say, hey, this is a little bit of a double top on the 1 hour, and it is, but I mean, as long as it makes a higher low than right around here, that mid 10K level, then it's just a normal pullback in my opinion. So um, it's real easy to like dissect these charts too much, and start looking at the 1 hours and the 30 minutes. I mean, we all do that. I do that. And it's real easy to kind of overanalyze. And so when we're in a little bit of a choppy market going sideways, just sometimes you got to zoom out a little bit and say, okay, what's this doing? Okay, it's trying to change trend here. RSI is confirming a little bit. So a little bit more patient, I guess is what I'm trying to say in this market. So that being said, should we be making any trades? Well, let me go back to one that didn't work, almost did. It was a beautiful breakout and then just a ugly reversal candle. And so basic attention yesterday, we saw that breaking out and then just really reverse. And at first the pullback was normal. I thought, here we go. This is good. It's going to just pause here and go higher. And then it just really broke down. And a lot of that maybe we could attribute to BTC just breaking support and pulling in and spooking the markets, because I saw it was kind of a direct correlation. This thing pretty much broke down when BTC started to break down again. And so that's the nature of the market. Unfortunately, you put stops, you raise your stops when you see it going, and at best you get out break even. At worst, you get out with a tiny loss. No big deal. I mean, at the end of the day, that's trading. You take your shots. It did rally right to that first resistance point, so maybe would have been a better quick trade and just in and out within an hour, but those move fast. Another one that I was watching too, for example, is Lumens, right? I was watching this setup. Did I post this chart yesterday? Let me go look real quick. I posted Cardano. I posted, okay, I hadn't posted this one yet. I was kind of doing some scans and looking at a handful of charts. I posted Verge, and we'll look at those here in a sec. But I was looking at Lumens, and it was really tightening up, putting in this nice little pattern, and then it breaks out, and then you get this huge volume reversal at the top, and it like pulls it back down 10%. Now it looks like it's bottoming out and wants to go higher, but that's just the nature right now. Is you get these big breakouts and you think it looks good, and then you get the big reversal, and here we are testing it. So it makes it tough to go into too many trades when the market's doing this right now. So a lot of it is BTC. BTC starts to firm up more, we'll see more of these really working. But these are good secondary entries. That's why I was saying if you see it go and it gets too far away, don't chase them. In this market environment, just let them go, or wait for these little pullback dips, these throwbacks to the breakout point. You can see this one did throwback almost perfectly. I don't like the volume on the pullback, but pretty much came like perfectly to that, and it's holding there. So maybe a good secondary entry here. Cardano is another one that was doing something similar. You can see we had that downtrend. I was looking at that falling wedge, finally bottomed out. Huge volume came in. I love that. Even though it had that wick on the top, that's no big deal, just because it moved up so far so fast. But you can see it's still going. I'd be looking for a little bit of a pullback, or you can take it here. Percent wise, it's not huge. So if you like it, you give it down to 5 or 6%. So it's not a huge percent from the downside. And if you look at the 4-hour chart, if this maybe is a little bit of a downtrend break, we'll see some more upside. At worst, maybe you just test this prior resistance point and you only get another 5-6% to the upside. If it breaks above that, then you can see another 10 to 15%. So there's there's some positive starting to show up there. There's some strength in the market that's trying to show up here with BTC maybe putting in a double bottom, maybe bottoming out there. And so I'm looking at these type of patterns and think, okay, we're starting to see more of these. That's good. At least it's a sign that, hey, this market's wanting to change the momentum a little bit. So let's go back to BTC here for the place here. It's just very spiky. Look at that big spike up to 11.4, then big spikes down to 10.4 and back up, and it's just range bound right now. So, but I think it's looking a little bit better. We'll see if it can hold up here. ARC, another one that I was looking at, and this one here is testing resistance. Several attempts to break out. I think it's going to go. It looks like it's really trying to move out here, and it's going to probably break to the upside. You can see that this floor that it put in finally broke down from, and trying to break above. And this also is another case for one of those Adam and Eve double bottoms, right? You see the big spike down, the second bottom rounded out, and then here we are testing the neckline, looking like it wants to break out. Volume on the right side here is looking really good. And so I'm liking this one, right? These are just different attempts. I mean, it's tried in the last several 4-hour bars, but just keep seeing selling showing up. But eventually that's going to end, right? You see the moving average starting to work its way up the right side. And so that's looking good. But, you don't want to get too aggressive yet on any of these one trades. I mean, I think maybe pick a few of the better looking ones or keep your positions smaller if you're liking some of these. But those are the ones I'd be looking at. Let me go to this other screen here. Another one that's been really strong is ELF. That one's been working. Let me switch back to candles here. And you can see just clearing resistance here in the last couple of hours, just moving very strong up the right side, big volume coming in. You can see that, just once it breaks these little downtrends. And so this one's been good. It had a good run early last week and then just really pulled back with this market. But here we are reasserting itself, and this one's looking really strong here. And so I like this one. I probably wouldn't chase it here, but you can see this daily chart, just how strong that is. Volume coming in, about to clear. I think it has way more upside. I'd just be looking for a little bit more of an optimal entry point, unless you're willing to just give it some more downside, right? Because it could easily pull back 10% and be just fine, right? So that's what I'm looking at. Doesn't mean it's gonna pull back, especially with volume coming in like this. The momentum's really, really taking off on names like this. And so there's one. Let me go to my notes here. There was a couple other ones. This one hit the radar. Let me see what this one is doing right now. Mana's kind of been building up pressure here. You can see tons of buy volume just showing up here, right? You can see it just kind of really popping in as it's working its way up here. And that's following this big signal that it gave us last week and then just kind of settled out. And here we are kind of rising up. Now, if you go up to the daily, you can see this is a pretty good little low. It's putting in a higher low and looked like it wants to start stair stepping its way up. And so we're seeing names show up, right? It's certainly not across the board. One opposite example, ICX. I mean, it was just looking really good and then was breaking down here. You can see we had this downtrend and then just really getting smacked to the downside. And so it's choppy and it's very selective. It's not across the board. So right now, I mean, the way I'd probably be looking at it is either you hold longer and you're just willing to take wider stops and see if some of these trades work. And if they pump quick, then maybe you just get the profit real quick and go that way. So, I'm just taking it a little bit slower right now. The market will change and it'll turn and we'll start to see more breakouts and signals work. And then it'll be time to get more aggressive. But for now, I think the nature is just, hey, take it easy, rush into, I mean, there's some where you got to jump on them quick, but don't get too aggressive, right? Don't suddenly jump on 10 trades and try to buy everything up real quick. It'll just be too tough right now. EOS was another one looking like it wants to do a little bit of a double top here. We'll see how this one plays out. It could also be a big cup and handle, right? If it this is a little bit deep, but depending on how deep this second pullback goes, maybe that's it. And then we break the trend and then it turns into a big cup and handle on the daily. Let me go to the daily chart. It's a big wick there, but you can see it's kind of flagging out here. And so I'd be watching this one, keep an eye on this, see how it looks. Don't want to see this second pullback get too deep. If it starts to undercut this, that's probably going to be a bad sign, and we'll see some more downside testing. So keep an eye on EOS. Somebody mentioned Steam. I was looking at that. Let me take a look here. Yeah, and I don't know what particularly is driving this. I'm not. I didn't do any research on this one yet, but just the volume here is just, you got to pay attention to that. When I see volume like that, I have a lot more conviction about jumping on a trade and after a pullback. But this daily chart just looks very strong. Just looks really good. It's been kind of moving a little choppy here, but it looks pretty good all around, right? And if you compare it to the big picture, right, we're way down here off the lows, trying to build a new little base right here below this big resistance point here, in and around there. So if it starts to break above that, then you're not going to see a whole lot of resistance until you start to get to these big levels up here. And from here on up, that's there's 30%, and then another up there, another 50 plus. So So pretty good there, right? This one's always tough to trade though, because Steam is just so volatile. I mean, look at these daily bars. I mean, that just tells you right there. This one bar is 25% wide. This bar is 30% wide. Um, so in any given day, it's wide, double digit bars. So it makes for a tough trade. So let me see here. A couple other ones. Uh, District was one smaller cap name, but no, not that one. Verge. We were talking Verge yesterday. I posted that chart, and again, another one that looked like it was ready to go, gave a false signal, and then just didn't. Let me see here. Let me go to my other chart here. I think I had the lines drawn. Yeah, so here's this is the big picture daily chart. In the short run, I was looking at a potential trend break on this downside. And then late yesterday, big volume started to come in, looked like the trend was breaking, and then just really gave it all up. And so here it is retesting the lows. I wouldn't necessarily take it off the watch list because you can see where it's at right now is a pretty big low point. Um, Descending triangle, yes, not a bullish pattern, but let's see if it can hold these lows. If it really starts to turn the corner here, then maybe one to take another look at. Digibyte was another one I was watching, turning the trend here, breaking that downside. You can see it had that downtrend, also finally broke it on good volume and was pulling back a little bit yesterday, but here we are starting to follow through a little bit. Seen some big selling coming in at the top here. This is a big resistance point, but all around, not bad. You can see here, right, it's testing this resistance, but it's putting this little bit of a cup, maybe a little bit of a handle right now. So I'd be watching this one, keeping an eye on this one. That's the 1 hour. If you go out to the 4 hour, you can see it looks a lot more constructive, right? It's starting to turn the corner here a little bit. And then here's the daily, still, a bearish tone on the daily, right? So it's just mixed signals. And a lot of these charts are just, they're just so technically damaged just because we've had this big pullback and the big shakeout. So on the daily charts, I think we're a long ways from really confirming some upside momentum. But by the time we do, a lot of these names will already be up 30, 40, 50%. So you got to take a little bit more of a granular look and start looking for some more earlier entries. And even if it's just a quick trade, I mean, these, you figure these are quick, if it goes up to this level here, 9, 10, 20%. So, all right. So let me see here. What else? Let me go to that's Vert. Let me look at a couple of names here. We covered Elf. We covered Cardano, Lumens. I think Lumens pretty good. Oh yeah, I was talking about ENG last week here. Engine. Oh yeah, this one's trying, right? Some good volume, a little bit of a pullback right now, but on the 4 hour chart, it looks really good. So it's really testing resistance, and a lot of these are right. They're all starting to kind of do a real similar pattern where they're bumping up. They've had this big pullback, bumping up, and I really like the volume patterns on some of these. Right, you see the big bull volume. The big red here is a support bar, and then starts moving up the right side with increasing volume. And ideally, that's what you want. It just shows accumulation happening here, and these little bit of a pullbacks are good secondary entry points, in my opinion. So I think if it starts to break trend here. All right, if you start to see on the, not that one, if you start to see on the downside, especially in the hourlies, right? If this starts to break to the upside here, those are good entry points. So that's what I'm going to be looking for. These type of patterns. Again, not going to get too aggressive, but there's stuff showing up, so it's a good sign. We're starting to see some names pop up. We're starting to see a little bit of the market trying to reverse trend here. So there's a question on Bcash, BCH versus Bcash, BTC versus BCH. So my thoughts on this, right? So BTC, obviously, they're doing some good things. They're Lightning Network maybe is going to work and all that fun stuff. This is, from the USD side, looking at BCH, right? That 22, $2,300 mark is going to be a big resistance point. Um, I think if Bitcoin can start to rally, we might see it outtake that. But versus BTC, I still am a believer that we're going to see it as a higher percentage. I don't think Bitcoin Cash is going to go away just yet. Um, where I think maybe in the 20s, right? So maybe we retest kind of this old high range, right? So maybe it's worth 20 to 25% or so of BTC in the long run. And so those are kind of some of my thoughts there. And I mean, that's huge, right? That's 40, 50% to the upside. Is it going to overtake Bitcoin, become the flippening and all that stuff? I really don't think so. But I don't think it's going to go away either. I think it'll be around. But we'll see. I mean, there's some scaling there, and I'm not so sure it's that much faster than Bitcoin anyway, right? So some of the potential advantages that they were trying to do, is it really there? But from a miner's perspective, they're going to continue to switch between the two as one becomes more profitable than the other, and I think you're just going to see that little bit of a dynamic there. It's not so much the anti-Bitcoin that it used to be for a little bit, where Bitcoin will pull in and this one would rally and vice versa. We've seemed to have lost a little bit of that. It just feels more like its own kind of standalone alt at this point. But there's those dynamics in play. Roger Ver, I don't think they're going to just stop pushing it. I think they're going to continue to. But if you like it long term, I mean, we're kind of at the lowest end of the range. I think between 10 and 15% of BTC. That's kind of in the low end right now. Um, yeah, Bcash versus BTC or LTC. I'm probably more bullish LTC. Let's take a look at that one here. Let me clear some of my notes on some of these old charts. Whoops. My mouse is jumpy here. Hold on. So versus BTC first, right? It's kind of been taking a little bit of a hit, but if you zoom out at the daily chart, this is Coinbase, right? You can see how still kind of flagging out, a little bit of tight action there. You can see here the downtrend is still there, but it's really getting tight here, right? I mean, it's consolidating a big part of that move, but I'm watching to see if this lower trend line can hold. But if you zoom in more to the granular look, the 1 hour, the 4 hour, right? It's trying. You're seeing some support coming in here versus BTC at the lows. Oops. And so I'm liking that. I think it's looking positive. If BTC can really start to rally, I think you'll see Litecoin outperform by a slight margin. Not huge, not compared to some of the other alts, but I think you'll see it outperform a little bit, even if it gets back to this old highs, right? That's you can see that's small single digits right there. On the USD side, it's pretty much tracking to Bitcoin. I mean, look at this chart. It's double bottom, rally, this little bit of a double top. It just looks very similar to BTC right now. So it's pretty much just tracking. Neo had a pretty good rally earlier today. Big volume selling showing up at the top here, but it was looking really strong for a while. It was as high as 147. Pulling it a little bit here on Bitfinex, so we'll see if that was just a one little flash in the pan rally or counter trend rally. There's just a lot of sellers showed up here, so I still think Neo has some time to consolidate. I think it needs it just after the big run it had and the big reversal. It's just going to be kind of finding its new price equilibrium right now. But I would think, here in this mid 100 range, mid to low 100 range is going to be the new floor. So we'll see. Neo's still looking pretty good long term, in my opinion. Let's see here. What's the max percentage portfolio you would keep in USD Tether? I get the concern. Everybody has that concern about how much should I put in Tether at any one time? Is it safe? Is the exchange going to go down? And I think that's a very valid concern. In the very short run, when we get these extreme spikes down to the downside, I very often am 100% in cash. Now I'm in across different exchanges, so that 100% is not all in Tether because there's certain exchanges that do have, you know, fiat currency pairs, US dollar, euros, stuff like that. So um, that would be cash too, right? But US Tether is a good proxy for the US dollar, and that's how it's supposed to work. So there are times where I go 100%. Now, it's not for an extended period of time. It's usually for a couple of days max. Um, rarely is it for weeks. I don't think I've ever been in Tether for weeks. So if you're not comfortable, I get that. The alternative would be you hold BTC because it tends to, if we have a big smackdown, it tends to fall less than some of the alts, right? The alts just are higher beta, meaning in a big crash events, if Bitcoin drops 20%, the alts are going to drop 30, 40%. And so that would be the alternative. Otherwise, you take a little Tether and you step aside, or you do half and half or something, whatever you're comfortable with. But in the very short term, I do 100%. Okay, let me see. Lisk was another name I was watching here, seeing if it firms up. You can see here on the daily charts looking really strong. Definitely all over the place. This is versus Lisk BTC on Polo. So you can see it's very spiky, but just the general candle is looking pretty good. On the 4 hour, trying to tighten up here a little bit. So I'm keeping an eye on this one, see if we can start to break the trend here a little bit. So uh, still not anything confirming, but I'd be watching this one. Um, all right, let me see here. Anything you guys want to cover? Any charts you want to look at here? Oh, 8x. Did I cover 8x? I didn't. This is one I was looking at earlier here. Now, this is the big chart, right? You can see how choppy it is all over the place. Makes for some good quick trades though. And here's the daily chart. Still kind of really flagging out here. It's just a weird, very wide pattern. But if you zoom in and look at the hourlies, you can see how tight we're getting here, a little bit of a range here in the last couple of days. And so that's a pretty tight little range here. I'd be watching that, see if it moves to the upside. If it does, it can make for a quick trade. Just testing either the downtrend resistance line that's 8% or these prior resistance points that's 15 to 20% upside. And it tends to happen relatively quick with a name like 8x. So I'm watching that one. I think that's it. Let me see here. So yeah, let's talk BTC long term. Some of you guys were asking about that, and that's a good discussion. Let me go to the daily. Let me go to Bitstep, and so I'm going to show you guys both like the the big scenario, right? The worst case, the doomsday scenario that everyone's worried about, and then just kind of where I think personally we are in the market. So just to recap, right? We've come off the top by quite a bit, right? We're at the lows, we're down 50%. Could it go lower? It certainly could. But is it bubble territory anymore? No, I don't think so, right? I mean, when it was going parabolic like this, that going straight up and we were making, $1,000 gains every day, every week, that's absolutely bubble territory. There was a day didn't go by when I couldn't look at the Wall Street Journal or Bloomberg or CNBC and they were talking Bitcoin and crypto, and it was all over the place on all over social media, right? And we needed this little bit of a reset, and we're getting the reset right now. And I think it's very healthy in the big scheme of things. It's going to set up a huge base, right? So what I'm looking at is if I go out and zoom out a little bit here on the chart, I'm not sure how low it'll go, right? I mean, the 8K is possible. Maybe we see that, and that's kind of the big correction. But ultimately, it's going to do one of these, and actually, it won't even do that. What it'll do is it'll probably have a big counter trend rally, and then we'll find some sort of like a equilibrium where the price stabilizes, and then it kind of gets boring for a little bit. It'll maybe flatten out for a little bit, and then it'll start to rally and start to stair step its way back up, and then it's kind of off to a new bull mode. How long that takes is anyone's guess, but it's going to be months, right? It's not going to be like we're shooting straight up and here we are making new highs, in the next, couple of, in the next month or two, right? And here we are at 20K by March. Now, is that possible? Sure. Is it likely? I doubt it. That's just not the way these markets work. After a big move like this, it's different than where it was down here, where we had a big move, but this was just gigantic, right? It's parabolic. Now this is not. I have the log off, so if I put the log back on, right, you can see it's adjusted for percent gain, so it doesn't look quite as steep, right? So um, just keep that in mind. Now, low side, I'm still thinking that, right? There's people saying maybe 5K. That just feels very extreme to the downside. Now, look at the weekly chart. It's pretty rare that I look at weekly charts in crypto, right? But you can see the last big pumps we had. Now, keep in mind, the market in 2013 and the market in 2014 was not the same market that we have now. We're much more mature. We've got futures, we've got potential ETFs coming, we've got broader adoption, we've got blockchain adoption in industry, much different. Okay. And so we got to keep that in mind. Now, back here, right, this is Mount Gox scenario, right? We basically went from $100 to $1,100 in a matter of weeks. We did a 10x, and so that we needed that long, protracted cool down period before we rounded the corner and went back up. And you can see where it bottomed out, right? It retraced 70-80% of that whole move, but it didn't happen all at once, right? We had the big spike down, and then we had these little pops to the upside that were 60-70%, and then the big spike down. But eventually we found this low point, and then it started to go up again. Now I think we're going to see a similar scenario from a pattern perspective, right? We're going to find this low point where just the buying just really starts to show up. Doesn't necessarily mean it starts to go straight up from there, but you're going to see this type of a low point play out. But I think it'll happen at a much faster scenario than it did back here, right? Back here it was like it was Bitcoin and it was a bunch of really small names, and everybody said, that's it. Bitcoin was an experiment and it's dead, and we had one exchange and they just went down and killed the ecosystem, right? A little bit different this time. And so I think you won't see this big 2-year bear market where you go flat for a while. I think it'll be a little bit more protracted, and then maybe settle out here and then off to the races. And maybe that takes us through, most of the first half of this year or even a little bit longer. But the good news is eventually the bottom will form and then we go sideways for a while. And during that sideways period in Bitcoin, I think the alts are just going to really have a good run, right? And you're going to see back and forth in some of that. So that's kind of the big picture view, right? That's kind of what I'm looking at. Now, if you do a Fibonacci retracement on this entire move, and I don't believe that's an accurate way to do it, but if you did, right? If you said from the very low at $200 and you went all the way to the top, near the 20, you can see that we've breached the 382 level, and the 618 level is that $7,500 mark, basically, right? And so if you said, hey, we're going to retrace a large part of this whole move, that's kind of where I'd be looking to see it pause. Now, the extreme low end, right, is we retrace all the way back down to the 786 level, and that's where people are saying, hey, we're going to see 4,000 or 5,000 BTC again, because we're going to basically pull back all the way down that far. I'm not in that camp. I think you'll see a lot more buying support show up before then. I think you'll see hedge funds and some of the big money crowd buying it up and supporting it before we get to those extremes, and mostly because they're going to probably want to backstop some ETFs and some hedge funds and all that good stuff. And so if we did at that point go down to 7, or whatever, 8K, we're off 60% from the highs. So that's a pretty big correction. And so those are kind of the big picture scenarios. That's what I'm thinking, right? So for now, I think you play it day by day. When it comes to trading and a lot of that stuff, it's not going to go straight down. It's not going to go straight up. There's a lot of good action in between. And so I think there'll be good trading scenarios and different opportunities. And like I said, this is just Bitcoin, right? We're just looking at Bitcoin itself, and has, there's just not a lot of direct, you can't say this exact same pattern is going to play out on the alts, because that's not true, right? I mean, when Bitcoin went from 19 down to, this big correction, then we started to rally and it was just kind of going sideways. I mean, at this point, Bitcoin had already come off the highs by quite a bit, and the alts went on a massive run, right? And we were seeing 100% gains and all that. So you got to keep that in mind, that even if Bitcoin just kind of grinds its way down and slows down, I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities in some of these new coming names, right? And so that's what I'm looking for. Let's look at a couple of other ones here. And in the big scheme of things, if we have a big base form, I really would welcome that because it just really gives you time to build a better, stronger portfolio, really start to accumulate more. And when it has that next big bull run, I mean, you're just going to have that much more crypto. Let me see here. So let me go zoom out a little bit. This is the 4 hour chart. You can see that downtrend still very much in play for now. This is in this one here. What I do like about this, it's continuing to test this breakout right here. So you can see, we had this high, we broke out, and here we are pulling in. Now, there is a case to be made that this is a little bit of a descending triangle, so I'd be cautious there. But we'll see if it can start to really round out here around this support line. This would be ideal, right? And then you'll see confirmation of a break to the upside here. But that's on the 4 hour chart, and that's a big percent. So if you like it, I'd take it here and just keep a tight stop, right? Just below this. Don't give it too much, 3 or 4% to the downside. Because the upside from here, I think the risk reward ratio is in your favor. It's a little bit preemptive, but it's an early take, a little bit of an early aggressive entry point. But if you like it, you can see the support line is very clear. And so on the upside, even just a test of the trend lines can give you 10%. If we test the old resistance points here, you're looking at closer to 20%. So not a bad one. Let me see. Let's look at PIVX first. So the big spike on PIVX was it being added to Binance, kind of giving it all up for now. But this is where it's going to want to hold. And I actually was really liking PIVX here. It was setting up before that Binance announcement. And it was putting in this nice big base. You can see the resistance was very clear on that. And that breakout just shot right through all of that and some. It was like up 100+% in an hour or a couple hours. Here it is, retracing a big part of that move, really starting to undercut. This is where I wanted to see it hold. Let me look at the daily chart. On the daily chart, it doesn't look bad, right? You had the big volume, of course, the big wick pulling in now, and this 10 EMA on the daily is just a few percent below where we're at now. And so it could go down, right? Another 3 or 4%, maybe 5. And then that's where I'd be looking for it to hold some support. Not unusual to see it test that breakout point and even undercut it a little bit, but then that's where I'd like to see it bounce. And it might be a good secondary entry point on this one. So not bad. See if it can hold. I mean, these are just tougher trades when they're news driven. Population. So this one's looking pretty good here. Moving up the right side here, good volume. A little bit of a high volume reversal here at the very top. So be cautious there. You're seeing some big volume coming in, some sellers starting to show up right here, but it certainly has been a strong name. So maybe we get a new base here. This is from the breakout here. That's already, that's not too bad. That's up 19% or so. So maybe it's just a little bit of a pause. So that's good. All right, let me see here. Some questions showing up on the Slack side. Yeah, double bottoms. I'm seeing double bottoms everywhere, to be honest with you. Omise Go, Zcash, Zcoin. There's just so many names that I'm watching that are trying to form this very similar pattern. You can see this. This is certainly a case for that, right? The big spike down and the rounded off, certainly breaking that downtrend. So Omise Go is looking pretty good here. Good on the 1 hour chart, good accumulation volume starting to come in here. And right now it's just really right at that resistance point now, kind of testing it a little bit, but it looks strong. And then you can see in the 1 hour, certainly a case for double bottom there. Zcash, another one. Let me see here. That's versus BTC. Let me look at Zcash USD. Not as strong as a double bottom. It's still there a little bit, but a little bit more shaky here. Let's take a look at Monero. It's trying to break this down trend a little bit, finding some support here in that 2.7, 2.8 level versus BTC on the USD side. Looking a lot stronger, right? Starting to go sideways here, at least breaking that downtrend right now. So that's looking pretty good. Let me see here. Zcoin. Okay, let me go to another exchange that's got that big wick. They both do on the 1 hour. All right, so yeah, this I wouldn't say this is a double bottom, but this is a nice little bit of a bull pennant forming on the top of that range there. So, um, after that little rally it had, I want to see it break this downtrend, and it's trying to hold here. Let's see if that can hold. Don't want to see that turn into descending triangle. It's starting to look that way though, unfortunately, but this is a nice little tight range right here. So, um, if it could break out of this little bit of a horizontal range that it's in right now, I think that'll really bode well for this name. So this one's looking good. Got to keep an eye on this one here. Volume's really drying up, getting real quiet here, and so that's a good sign, right? It's starting to invalidate that declining triangle type of pattern, right? Just had this pullback, and here it is, just kind of very parallel, kind of sideways. So keep an eye on. That's good. Let me see here. The questions. Mm, the 2 4 hour consolidation. Are we on Bitcoin? Are we in an equilibrium pattern? Uh, yeah, I think we are. I mean, it feels that way. Even maybe that little bit of a double bottom. But if you go to the 1 hour, the 4 hour, it's very clear, right? I mean, you can see. Let me go to the 4 hour. It makes it a little bit easier to see. But you can see, right? We had that low, and then we've got this high, and then we've got another bit of a low, and it's just kind of we're in like the middle ground now. So, um, when you have these big shake offs and you find the low, that's really easy to gauge because momentum shifts. We get the bounce right into resistance. We wedged up, measured, moved down, pretty much came down to the target, and then here we are now, kind of middle ground. Where do we go from here, right? It's just trying to figure out the next direction right now. So real choppy these last couple of days. I would just sit tight and be a little bit more patient. The market will really start to assert itself here soon, I think. Do a couple more here for you guys, and then we'll wrap it up here. What I can't remember the exchange it's on. It's all right. We'll look at that one later. Let me go to my notes here, see if I had any other thoughts here. Hold on. No, not that one. Those, okay. All right, I'm thinking that's it for now. Anything else you guys want to hear or look at? Just gonna check out the comments here. We looked at ICX. We didn't see Ven. Let's take a look at that one here. VeChain has been one of the stronger names, but a little extended, no doubt. So, yeah, some of you guys were asking me about this one. Hey, you took some profits, you sold out. I think this one's probably pausing here at best. It's going to need more time. Just had that huge run. I mean, look at the daily chart. Just it was extended. There was no doubt. And then on the 1 hour, I was seeing some bearish divergence. That's finally playing out, right? You see that as it was making some highs, it was starting to weaken out a little bit. But here we are, just kind of basing out. I think it's just consolidating right now. As long as it holds up, not too bad. Probably just putting it in a new base. But man, this one's been strong. One of the leaders for sure. And so maybe we round out a little bit of a base here in this zone. We covered ICX. Let me see here. Where'd it go? I had it here on my list. Not liking the little bit of a breakdown it's putting in right now. That was a nice little bit of a flag, very constructive. Here it is breaking down. Maybe it started to roll over and turn into a double top. So Be cautious on this one. I do have some of this one on my long term. I'm going to pare back a little bit and see where it bottoms out, because if it is a double top now, then you might see a retest of this neckline at least, and that'll take you down maybe another 15, 20%, right? And then this would be a very strong support level that needs to hold, in my opinion, because this is the breakout point. We've rallied, we've tested it once. The alternative, maybe better case, is we kind of just build in this new base up here, make a series of higher lows, and then we go from there. Then that would turn into a big ascending triangle base if we see that play out, right, where the lows start to get higher, and then you see one of these things form where it's more of an ascending triangle base, and that'd be very bullish if we saw that play out. So still got to keep an eye on this one. I like it. Tron. Nobody asked about Tron. Tron, man, what a pullback it has. Um, keep watching it though. I'm thinking, man, maybe it's due for a little bit of a counter trend rally. It's tried. You see the volume coming in here on the 1 hours. It's trying to break, but just a lot of the sellers show up. I think there's just a lot of people holding it still that trying to get out. But then you'll have another rally on this one, and this one just tends to move when it does. So maybe you'll get a big pop to the upside. Let me see here, mod. That one here, probably not a whole lot to do. Link, it's just been so volatile. Keep an eye on Digibyte. I mentioned this one at the start of the stream. I think this one's looking pretty good here. So, all right, I'll kind of summarize and I'll post it on Slack. Maybe the top candidates that I'm seeing right now, some of the better setups. They're starting to show up, but we just got to be a little patient right now. I think with BTC just being so shaky, things are trying to figure out where we go next. But we're seeing some good bottoming patterns form, and I think over the next day or two we'll start to see some more direction in the market. If we can see a little bit more rallying, then that'll bode well for the market. So just to kind of recap, coin again, what I'm looking at is the potential of a double bottom forming here with the big spike low and then this second rounded double bottom. But to see that play out, we're going to need to start to see some more upside confirmation and some not new highs, but new higher highs here on this part, right? We're all seeing a lot of selling into that mid 15 or mid 11 range, and we want to see that start taking up and testing these next resistance levels, and then that'll really start to confirm that, hey, this little trend is starting to turn here. That'll also translate into a bigger green bar on the daily, and maybe we see a nice double bottom form on the daily as well, and give us at least a couple of days of some rally here. And if we do, I mean, that'll really start to change the tone, because right now, at least for the last couple of weeks, right, the 10 EMA is declining. That seems to be the wall. We just can't seem to rally. We're making a series of lower highs. If we start to at least change the pattern, I'm not saying it's going to go straight back to the races and off we are at 17, 19K, but at least we'll see some upside, breakout maybe, then pull back and maybe start to build a good little base there. So let me see here. Would I consider a head and shoulder on the RSI? No, I don't really look at those patterns on the RSI. I look for divergences on the RSI. So if you see a double bottom with a lower low or a higher low, that's kind of what I look for. 8 waves in a PVC. All right. Yeah, you could argue a little bit of a falling wedge is trying to break out of here. So if maybe we finally we break trend here and starting to go sideways, at least trying to hold this support level. So not bad. Maybe want to keep an eye on, see if we could rally here. Yeah, it does. It looks identical to that double bottom. And that's the thing, right? When you start seeing these double bottoms, and then on the daily it's a double bottom, and then you see it the 4 hours double bottoms within double bottoms, like that just really starts to show some better conviction in the market that it's at least it's trying here. So Waves is actually looking pretty good here on this 4 hour. Seeing some huge volume, and I love that. Let me see on the MACD signal lines moving up too. So yeah, I like this one. This one's looking pretty good here. Trying to break resistance here on the upside. Seeing some follow through on the daily chart. Finally moving back above that 10 EMA as well. RSI is confirming. So um, yeah, this was looking pretty good on the 1 hour. They're just things are very like this right now, right? They break out and then they pull back and they're up, and so they're very choppy once they start moving. So you probably don't want to chase them, but maybe set some buy dip orders or something, or wait for a pause, and or if it really keeps going, just let it go, right? But I mean, even from here down to the support, it's only 6%, so that's not too bad. But yeah, looking pretty good. All right, guys. Well, that'll be it for now. We'll go ahead and wrap this one up. I'll probably do a broader YouTube live stream here later this afternoon. So I'll post it on our Slack. So for those that are interested and want to join there, or if you have charts you want me to look at there, we can do it then. So thanks for everybody for joining. Take care, everyone.